Hello friends, my name is Mark Moore. I am the author of the book Early Genesis, The Revealed Cosmology. I believe there's a link to it in the comment section of this video. It's free if you have an Amazon Prime account in the ebook version. Now, the Christ-centered model of early Genesis that is promulgated in that book has a couple of things in it that are controversial as far as claims go about the worldview or the cosmology of early Genesis. And one of the claims is that the flood of Noah did not kill the whole human race. It killed the Adamic race, except for those in the ark. And a lot of that has to do with what the flood presages, what it's supposed to represent. It's supposed to represent baptism. Baptism is not where all the unbelievers get drowned. It's where those who are the Lord's people submit themselves to the Lord's judgment, and what is unclean in them gets purified. So that was his people getting purified, not all the unbelievers. And that sort of leads back to and you have to see the other videos on this maybe to get fully what I'm saying, but a model for humanity, a model of Genesis chapter 1, where God has a plan. His goal is Christ and the church in the heavenly places. That's the goal. What he starts with is the human race. And he wants to get the human race to Christ and the church. And what he does to accomplish this goal begins with Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve, they're to launch the line of Messiah to get the human race to be Christ in the church. So that's the model. I urge you to look at the other videos if you want to learn more about that. I want to address what the scriptures say about the specific question of, did the flood kill everyone? Did God wipe out the whole human race? Or did he just wipe out the line of Messiah that had gone astray? Now, a couple of scriptures that are most commonly used to make people think that it was the whole human race. Oh, Mark, you're wrong. The flood killed everybody. And I deal with, if you see the videos about where all the animals in the ark, or I have 2 videos about the flood, see them for more details. But after the flood account, there's a couple of other scriptures people use to say that, well, that must have been all the people there were, because it says in Genesis 9:19, of them was the whole earth overspread, and in Genesis 10:32, by these were the nations divided, speaking of the families of Noah. Now this account in this Genesis 10 is the table of nations. Genesis 11 is the Tower of Babel. In order of history, though, chapter 11 must have happened first, because chapter 11 describes the process how men came to be scattered, and chapter 10 describes where they wound up after they got scattered. So chronologically, 11 would come first, and 10 is sort of the aftermath. But if you look at this language superficially, you might think, well, okay then, they were all the people on earth, the nations were populated by these people. But it doesn't say populated. It really, if you look up this word, overspread, it's a pretty bad translation of the actual napisa, Strong's word number 5310, if you're using Strong's concordance. It really means like divided, sundered, torn up. They were there in a place and they got all ripped to pieces. That's kind of what that word really means. And this word that's used here, divided, pretty much means divided. It doesn't mean that their immediate descendants were the whole population. It does mean that they divided it up. Now, if you will think about what happened to many of the patriarchs in the Bible, like for example, Abraham. You know, Abraham, he had such a large, potent household that he raised a private army from his own household and went and defeated 5 kings. So obviously these weren't all his sons. These were a bunch of employees and servants and hangers-on. He had a big household. If he hadn't taken steps to run some of those kids off and to divide some of it up, he might have been the core of a nation that was like bigger than Israel, but he wanted to be Israel. As a matter of fact, Ishmael, kind of the same way. You know, Ishmael ran off. He wound up having a pretty big kingdom too. Obviously Isaac got so powerful, the king of a city came out to him and said, look, I need to make a peace treaty with you. And then, or I think that was with Abraham. And then with Isaac, the people of that city said, look, never mind, you're too powerful for us, just get away. So the balance of power, he was so great, he was on his way to becoming his own nation, not solely through his own offspring, but just because his household was so big. Same thing with Esau. Esau wound up, when he wanted to get into rough and tumble with Jacob, 400 guys came with him for the fight. I mean, the average person today couldn't call his friends and employees and whatever together, and hundreds of men show up willing to put their lives on the line, but Esau could. So this was the, I guess, aura or magnetism or whatever you have it, leadership abilities of the patriarchs, that they drew what could later become the core of nations around them. And I believe that's what it means when it says divided. And this really should say divided too in 9:19. Now, in order for that to be so, when they come in to the Tower of Babel, there needs to already be other people there. Because otherwise there would be, I say that instead of being these new nations being all their descendants, they're basically a natural nobility, the core of which nations grew around, is kind of what I'm saying. But for that to be true, when Noah's descendants come out of the hills and find a plain in the land of Shinar, because Genesis 11 verse 3 or verse 2 that's what it says. It says they journeyed on from the east and they found a plain in the land of Shinar. There needs to already be other people there, because if there's not already other people there, then where do their hangers-on come from? Where do the people that attach themselves to their households come from? Because I'm saying that when it talks about of these were the nations divided, I'm saying they were the nobility, but there was a whole bunch of other people, not necessarily their descendants, but just their household attached to them. And it does say that. Genesis 11 does say that. Verse 1, if you look at it closely, but how many people look at the Bible closely these days? Boring, I know. So, Genesis 11:1, it says, the whole earth was of one language. Now, we know we have found some documents from this time. Sometimes their view of the whole earth was a little parochial, I should say. We found there's something called In Merkar, and the Lord of Arada is an ancient text, and it kind of sounds like it's talking about the same thing, some of the same events. But they describe the whole earth, and they give like 5 or 6 nations whose locations, most of whose locations we know, and it's basically from Iran to Syria kind of thing in today's terms. But it says the whole earth was one language, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar, which we now know is Iraq. Babylon, Iraq is Shinar. And here's what and who is they? Well, continuing from chapter 10, it's the families of the descendants of Noah. That's who the they is. In chapter 11, you're just continuing from chapter 10. They is the descendants of the families of Noah. It said, let us build us a city and make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. Now, didn't they just say up here, 3 verses previously, that the whole earth was of one language and one manner of speech? And yet, they were saying, let's build a city so we will not be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. If they were not abroad on the face of the whole earth in verse 4, who was doing the speaking in verse 1? It clearly is implying there were other people there. When they got to the land of Shinar, they found a plain, there were people there, and they could speak their language. Maybe they had had interactions with the line of Adam prior to the flood. I don't know. But they were speaking a language they could understand. And they were worried. The families of Noah were worried. They didn't want to get scattered abroad on the face of the whole earth. That means they weren't on the face of the whole earth. And yet the whole earth was of one language. Further, they said, we want to build the city. We want to make us a name. Let's make a name for ourselves. If you're the only people on earth, why do you need to do that? Who are you trying to impress? You know, it's just us sons of Shem, Ham, and Japheth here. Why do we need our own special name? We're just mankind. We're just all humans. But they didn't say that. They wanted to build a city. I think they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and what they found there, they found some cities already. And they're like, we want to build our city and make a name for ourselves. We don't want to be just lost in everybody else's show. We want our own show. And the good Lord didn't want them to do it that way. He didn't want the name, he did not want them to make a name for themselves of their own doing. He wanted them to produce the name, a line leading to the name by which all men might be saved, Jesus Christ. So he frustrated their plans. He didn't care about their reputation. But the very fact that they were worried about their reputation, that they wanted to make a name for themselves, that they were concerned about being scattered over the whole earth, indicates they were not over the whole earth at that time, and yet the whole earth was speaking a common language. There were other people there. I mean, it doesn't say that, but the way it describes things in the text, it just assumes you know it. Unfortunately, that was thousands of years ago, written in a different language, and it's not easy, folks. The truth, it's not, it was meant to be pretty plain in the day, but that's okay. The truth is not meant to be easy. It was meant to be desired. It was meant for us to work for it and to really have to think about it and understand it. But it's worth it. Truth is worth it. So, at any rate, that's a little talk, and and I tie this into some other videos about our model versus the reasons to believe model, and the Christ-centered model versus reasons to believe, but and show that really how much more sense this makes with what is when you plug it into creation model and testing and all that sort of thing. But anyway, I urge you to look at those videos, think about what I'm saying, and may God bless you.